My name is Elodie Marchetti. I am 38. My grandson was 25 days old when an ambulance carried him into St. Brannan's, the hospital I have worked in for 15 years, with a line taped into his scalp. A baby that dry has no vein left anywhere else, I found out, 31 hours later. I live 22 minutes from that door. My sister was in that room the whole time. She had told the team my daughter had nothing to give him. My daughter is 20. I did not telephone my sister. I drove over and stood in front of a freezer. There is a strip of stickers in my bag tonight, still stuck end to end the way it came off the roll. Not one of them has a word on it. That is the reason they worked. Welcome back to Porch Stories, where a family decides who is allowed to speak, and then a small machine that cannot be argued with decides who was telling the truth. $117,460 had been raised for that baby by a town of 9,000 people. On the morning the ambulance came, my daughter's name was not on the account it sat in. Subscribe before I go on, because the thing that turned this around is a sticker the size of your thumbnail, and it only counted once a stranger read it out loud. Then tell me in the comments what your family says about you when they want you out of the room. Mine says I am too close to it. I weigh babies, 15 years of it now, before a feed and after a feed, on my own scale, in other women's kitchens. Let me take you back to the last week of January, to a milk room with the door propped open, and to a girl of 20 who was still pregnant and still asking me questions in a parking lot. That week, I was on nights, and at 3 a.m. I was in the milk room at St. Brannan's with a woman I had met at 11 o'clock. Her son had come at 29 weeks. He was 4 days old, and she had not held him yet. She had a bottle in her hand with about a teaspoon in the bottom of it. She wanted to know whether that was worth carrying down the hall. I told her it was, because it was. Then we did what everybody does. She set the bottle on the scale by the sink. She turned her wrist over, read the number off the plastic band, keyed it in. The machine made a noise like a cricket. A sticker came off the roll. That sticker has 4 things on it: the date, the minute, how much came out of her, and the number on her wrist. It does not have her name. It does not have the baby's name. It does not have a word on it anywhere. And that is the point. A name can be spelled 2 ways, and a number cannot be anything but itself. You peel it, you wrap it around the bottle, and you put the bottle in the chest freezer against the far wall, which has a padlock hasp on it that has never once been padlocked. Then she started crying. And it was not about the teaspoon. She was crying because of the band. She had gone home on the Tuesday and come back through the emergency doors on the Friday, and downstairs a clerk had cut the first one off her wrist and put a new one on. Every bottle she had left in that freezer from the first week was wearing a number that was not hers anymore. That is how a hospital does it. New admission, new band, new number. The old one is finished. That printer will never print it again. I sat on the counter with her until she stopped. Then I labeled her bottle and put it in the basket. The milk room smells like warm milk and the foam out of the wall dispenser. Under that, there is the freezer, which is cold plastic and something faintly like pennies. 15 years. And that smell still means to me that somebody's night is going all right. Because that is what I do. I am the one they call when the feeding is not going right. I weigh a baby before he eats, and I weigh him after. And the difference between the two is what he actually got. Not what it looked like, not what anybody felt. Grams. A baby cannot tell you, and a mother cannot always tell you. And the scale does not have an opinion about either of them. A baby answers in grams, and grams do not care who is speaking. I have said that in kitchens for 15 years, and I never once thought it would have to do any real work. My daughter is named Iris. She was 19 when she got pregnant, and 20 when she had him. She asked me in a parking lot in January, with my gray case still in the back of the car from a morning visit, whether it was true that some women just cannot. I said some women cannot. I said it is not many, and it is not decided in advance, and nobody can tell you which one you are from looking at you, she said. How would I know? I said. You would count. And she said, Auntie says some people just aren't built for it. That is the first time I heard that sentence. In a parking lot in January, secondhand, about a girl who was not a mother yet. I said something dismissive about how nobody can tell a thing like that in advance, and I put the case back in the car, and I did not think about it again for 2 months. The answer I gave her is the answer I give everybody. I gave it to my own daughter in a parking lot with the wind coming off the salt bins. It was the last ordinary thing in this story. You count wet diapers. 6 a day is the floor. 6 wet ones in 24 hours means the machinery is working. It does not take a degree or a scale or a professional to see it. That is exactly why I teach it. It is the one measurement a mother can take at 2 in the morning with nobody's permission. 6 a day. Write it down on paper. That is what I told her. She bought a composition book at the drugstore for $1 and change. Blue cover. She wrote the date at the top of the first page, before he was even born. I did not know that until much later. It is the one detail in this whole business I still cannot say out loud in a steady voice. My mother is 66, and she is the reason any of us turned out able to hold a job. She drove my daughter Iris to every appointment. She parked, and she walked in with her, every time, so the girl would not have to go through those doors alone at 20 years old with no ring on. My sister Georgette is 34, and she is the one in our family who handles things. In my family, that word is a compliment, and it is also the whole disease. Every family has one, and if yours does not, it is you, and you have not noticed. She is genuinely, unusually good at it. She has a voice for offices. It is not loud, and it never gets faster. When our father was dying, she handled the whole thing. She has a canvas bag with a zip. She brings it, takes it out, puts it on the desk. I have watched grown professionals turn their chairs toward her without being asked. I used to be proud of it, the way you are proud of a big dog. Then the town raised money. My daughter went on the prayer list at the church, which in our town is not a religious act so much as a municipal one. It means the fire auxiliary knows and the diner knows. The town decided the girl needed help and went about that with a terrible, cheerful efficiency. There was a spaghetti supper. There was a jar on the counter at the hardware store with his ultrasound picture taped to it. The picture was crooked. Nobody ever fixed it. I loved that jar. $117,460. It is written on an index card pinned to the corkboard in the milk room, above the shelf where the labels come off the roll. A nurse put it up there so that unit could see what a place like ours can do. $117,460 in a town of 9,000 people. Nobody there had that kind of money. They made it out of $5 bills in a jar with a crooked picture taped to it. And when the fund closed, somebody had to sit down at the credit union and open an account to put it in. We went on a Thursday in October, the 3 of us, in one car. My daughter was 7 months along, with a folder on her lap holding her identification, because I had told her to bring it. The branch manager there is a man named Victor, and he was good about it. He laid the paperwork on the desk facing my daughter and asked her one question. Did she want the account in her own name, or held in trust for the baby? There was that half-second a tired girl takes. And my sister said, "She's overwhelmed. Put it under me for now, and we'll move it over when things settle down." Not loudly, in the voice you use to tell somebody the pharmacy closes at 6. Victor looked at my daughter. My daughter looked at the folder in her lap, and a woman who is very good at this turned the signature card around and signed it. The auxiliary's check went across the desk. The whole thing took about 9 seconds. I was in the chair by the window with my coat still on. I did not say one word. I am putting that here in October and not down at the end where it would sit easier. Everything after this is me finding out what a person can do with a signature nobody objected to. Has your family ever handed a job to whoever was best at it, and then watched the job turn quietly into ownership? Tell me in the comments where yours started. And subscribe, because there is a form later in this story with a line nobody filled in. That blank line is the whole thing. He was born on the 3rd of February, at 36 weeks, 5 pounds 11 ounces, in a room I was not allowed to be in. That is the hospital's rule, and it is mine, too. I do not consult on my own blood. I have turned away 3 cousins and a neighbor in 15 years, and this time it cost me everything the rule was supposed to protect. So I was the grandmother. I sat in the chair. I held ice chips. For the first time in 15 years, I stood on the wrong side of a door in a building where I know which cupboard holds the spare pillowcases. They took him up to the level 2 unit for feeding and warmth, which is a normal sentence for a baby born 4 weeks early. It is not an emergency. It is a room with dim lights, a nurse to every 3 cots, and a rocking chair that squeaks. And my daughter pumped every 3 hours, around the clock, including the ones at 2 and at 5. Sitting up in a bed you were stitched in yesterday, holding 2 plastic funnels to yourself with both hands, while a motor the size of a shoebox fills the room, and there is no baby in your arms while you do it. The baby is down the hall. You are doing it for a refrigerator. 12 days of that. She had a rented pump from my own inventory, the kind I issue and bill, and it sat on the tray table with the cord taped down. And every single time, she walked that bottle to the milk room herself, keyed the number off her band. The machine went like a cricket. The sticker came off the roll. 41 of them went in that freezer. I did not count them then. Nobody counts them then. They were a shelf of small bottles in a wire basket with tape on the front, the way there are 20 other baskets with 20 other strips of tape. Her band that admission ended 7 to 7. Nobody knows their own band number. You key it in, you forget it, and the machine keeps it. What my sister did in that unit was not dramatic and would not have looked wrong from the hallway. On the 4th day, my sister Georgette started coming in the afternoons. She brought the good coffee. She brought my daughter a sweatshirt that zipped up the front instead of going over the head, which is the correct sweatshirt, and I had not thought of it. And she began, gently, to answer. A resident would come in and ask Iris a question, and there would be that half-second a tired girl takes, and my sister would fill it. Not rudely. She would say, "We're doing all right. We had a hard night." She would say, "She's a little overwhelmed." She would say, "I'm handling the paperwork side, so anything like that comes to me." 9 seconds. That is all it takes for a person behind a desk to decide who they are dealing with now. By the 2nd week, my daughter had stopped opening her mouth first. I watched it happen, and I called it politeness, because I wanted a nap and because my sister brought the good coffee. I watched a woman get installed over my daughter, and I read it as help. Help was what I wanted, and the woman doing it was carrying the same bag she had carried my father through his last winter with. They went home on the 15th of February with a feeding plan on a sheet of paper. 2.5 ounces every 3 hours, breast first, top up after. That is a completely normal plan for a baby that size. It has a signature line at the bottom of it, and on the 15th, the signature on that line was my daughter's, because I stood there and watched her write it. Then there was a weight check on Tuesday, the 24th. I was not there. I was in a house on the other side of the county with my scale case open on a woman's kitchen table, weighing a baby who turned out to be perfectly fine. My mother did not drive them that day. My sister did. I have the note from that visit now. I have read it more times than is good for a person. It is 4 sentences long, and one of them is this. Maternal grandmother's sister present reports mother producing minimal to no volume. Mother tearful. Family requests formula plan. Maternal grandmother is me. Her sister is Georgette. That is how my sister appears in my grandson's medical record as a relation of a relation, 3 steps from the baby, and it is her sentence in there and not my daughter's. Family requests. She is 20. She has nothing to give him. 4 words of that sentence went into a medical record as a fact about my daughter's body, written down by a professional who had no way to check it and no reason to think she needed to. And a nurse practitioner wrote a new plan. It cut him to 1.5 ounces every 3 hours, with a top-up if he wanted it. For a baby that size, that is not a nothing change. It is a smaller pour, 4 times a night. And the signature line at the bottom of that sheet does not have my daughter's name on it. I asked my sister about it later, not in a hallway, in her kitchen, with a candle lit on the counter that smelled like a cinnamon roll had died in there. She said the sentence I have now heard 6 ways from 4 people. She is 20. She has nothing to give him. Not shouted. Said the way you would tell somebody the pharmacy closes at 6. I started to say that I had watched the girl fill a freezer, and my sister put her hand flat on her own counter, not hard, and said the other one, "You were too close to this to help." He had been taking 2.5 ounces. She put him on 1.5 ounces. That is a full ounce less, 4 times a night, in a baby who weighed less than a bag of sugar. On a chart, it is 1 line, and you would scroll past it. In a cot, it is the whole difference. 4 days later, he stopped making wet ones. 6 a day is the floor. My daughter's blue composition book has the 25th in it, and the 26th, and the 27th, and the numbers go 5, then 4, then 3. On the 28th, she wrote a 2, and then a question mark beside it. Then nothing else. That was the morning she picked him up, and he did not wake the way babies wake. She called the squad herself, from the floor of her own bathroom, 25 days old. They put a line in his scalp in the emergency department because there was nothing left in his arms to find. The salt in his blood came back at 162. The number a baby is supposed to sit at is 140. That is not a little over. That is the difference between a baby who is hungry and a baby who is drying out, and it is why there is a line in a scalp instead of a needle in a hand. I have that page. I have read it more times than is good for a person, and I have never once got to the bottom of it without putting it face down. And downstairs, a clerk cut the first band off my daughter's wrist and put a new one on. New admission, new number, 31 hours. That is how long I did not know. 31 hours in which I made supper. Did a home visit in a trailer out on the county road with a 19-year-old and her mother. Told that girl 6 a day is the floor. Drove home. Slept. I found out on the Sunday at 1:10 in the afternoon, standing in the milk room. My colleague, Enos, has worked that unit beside me for 11 years. She said the worst sentence anybody has ever said to me, and she did not know she was saying it. She said, "Is he doing any better this morning?" I live 22 minutes from that door. I did not telephone my sister. I want to be plain that this was not restraint. It was that my hands were not working properly, and I could not have held a phone. I went down the corridor to the milk room, and I opened the freezer. Cold plastic and pennies. That smell. She is 20. She has nothing to give him. I had let that sentence go by once already. It was said in the voice you use for pharmacy hours. I was tired. And it was about somebody else's daughter, until it was not. Second shelf, wire basket. A strip of masking tape on the front with Marchetti, I. On it in a nurse's block capitals, small bottles standing up like a choir. I put my hand in and turned one so the sticker faced me. And I stood in a doorway I have walked through 4,000 times, reading a date I already knew, a minute I did not need, and a number I had never once in my life had a use for. My colleague Ines found me like that. She has a way of arriving beside you without arriving. She did not ask me what was wrong, and she did not ask what happened, and I did not know until that afternoon what she was made of. She said, "What are we doing then?" Not is something wrong. Not what has happened. What are we doing? As though she had already been walking beside me for an hour. I said, "I need to know how many are in here." And a woman with her own patients waiting stood in a walk-in cold draft with me, and we took them out one at a time and stood them on the counter in rows of 10. 41. Every one of them, ending 7 to 7. They let me up to see him that evening. He had a line taped into his scalp under a paper cup cut in half. A piece of tape across his forehead held the tubing back. His hair had been shaved in a patch the size of a nickel. I am not going to make a set piece out of a sick baby. 2 things. The first is that his fists were not closed. A baby's fists are closed. His were open on the sheet, like a person asleep in a chair on a porch. The second is my daughter. She was in the vinyl recliner in the corner, with the pump running on the tray table beside her. You do not get to stop. If you stop for a day to be frightened, you may not get it back. 20 years old, 4 weeks postpartum, her son 6 feet away with a line in his head, and that motor going. She had the blue composition book on her knee. She looked up and she saw my face, and she did the thing that I will be paying for one way or another until they put me in the ground. She apologized. Then she said the sentence this whole story is really about, and she said it looking at the book and not at me. I counted his wet ones like you taught me. Nobody ever asked to see the paper. Nobody ever asked to see the paper. And then I asked her the question I had been carrying up 2 flights of stairs, which was why she had not telephoned me. She said, "Auntie has my phone." She had handed it over in the ambulance bay, the way you hand somebody your phone when your hands are full of a baby. It stayed in a coat pocket through the admission and the line and the night and the day and the night after that. My daughter does not have my number written down anywhere. Nobody her age does. So it was 2 things at once, and they fit together like a lid on a jar. The hospital telephoned the woman on the form because that is what the form is for, and the girl could not telephone anybody because her telephone was in that woman's coat. 4 professionals and 3 family members were involved in this child's care over 25 days. My sister said, she has nothing to give him, in a room with a desk in it, and not one person in that whole arrangement said, "Can I see what you wrote down?" The next morning, I did the thing that I do, which is that I asked for records. I am allowed to. Not as staff, that line is the reason I still hold a license tonight. My daughter is over 18, and she signed a release at the desk on the ground floor and put my name on it. A clerk with a lanyard photocopied things. I paid $22 and got a rubber band around a stack of paper. I took it to the parking structure and sat in my car on level 3 with the stack on the passenger seat. Most of it was what I expected. The plan from the 15th with my daughter's signature. The plan from the 24th without it. The lab times. The order sheets. And then there was a page I was not looking for at all, which is the page you always find. It is called the Family Contact Sheet, and it is the single most boring document in a hospital. The unit clerk fills it in on admission so everybody knows who to telephone and in what order. There is a line at the top for the patient. Then there is a line for the mother. Then there is a line for the family spokesperson, which is a real line on a real form, and it exists for good reasons, because sometimes a mother is 19 and terrified or intubated, or 19 and terrified and intubated. On the sheet from the admission that came in by ambulance, the spokesperson line said Georgette Marchetti, and it said her mobile number, and it said her work number too. And the line above it, the one that says mother, was empty. Not wrong, not crossed out, not somebody else's name written in over the top of it, which is at least a thing you could argue about. Blank. 1 page, 1 blank line. My daughter was in that building when that clerk filled it in 2 floors up, in a chair, with a pump running. And on the piece of paper that tells a hospital who this baby belongs to, there is a woman's name in the spokesperson line. Where the mother goes, there is a white space. I sat on level 3 of a parking structure with my hand flat on that page. I could hear the ventilation fan. My ears went hot the way they used to in school. Because that is not a mistake, is it? A mistake is a wrong number. A mistake is a name spelled with 2 T's. Somebody sat at a desk with a pen and came to the line that says mother and went past it. So I opened the scale case on the kitchen table, and I took the scale out, and I did not put it back for 19 days. With the scale out there is a hollow in there, the shape of a small animal, and paper lies flat in it. That is where all of this lived, until the day I set it down in front of a stranger. The freezer labels went in first. 41 of them, photographed on the counter in rows of 10, with a colleague's hand in the corner of the picture holding the row straight, and every one printed with the band ending 7 to 7. I took those photographs on the Sunday afternoon, inside the same hour I found out. I know that because the pictures carry the minute on them too. Everything in my trade does. Then the strip. My daughter kept pumping through the second admission. Nobody had told her to stop. and she had gotten it into her head that the milk was the only thing about this she was still allowed to do. The second night I stood at that printer with her, instead of leaving her to it, she would hand me the bottle, I would set it on the pad, she would key in her band, the machine would go like a cricket, and the sticker would come, and I did not tear them off. I let them run, and I peeled them off the roll in one piece. I could not have told you why at the time. I think I wanted her to see something get longer. It came off in one piece, long enough to hang past my knee, every sticker on it printed under the band ending 8 to 3, a number that did not exist anywhere in the world until an ambulance came. I pinned that strip to the corkboard in the milk room, under the index card with the money on it. It hung down past the shelf. For 4 days, every nurse on that unit walked past a girl's entire argument without knowing that is what it was. Then the pump. Every pump I rent out has a little counter in it that adds up the minutes it has run, the way a lawnmower does. Nobody thinks about it except me at the end of a quarter, working out which ones are worn out. I brought it in and read the counter. That machine had run longer in 3 weeks than any rental I have put out in a year, and I have 40 of them in circulation. A 20-year-old girl wore out a motor. Then I sat on the floor of my daughter's front room with my back against her couch for a while. A counter cannot cry. I found that I could. Then the 2 plans, side by side. The 15th, with her signature, the 24th, without. My mother looked at those 2 sheets at my kitchen table, with her reading glasses pushed up and then down again. She is 66. She has hands like a woman who has never once been indoors for a whole day. She put one of them flat on the second sheet, exactly the way I had in the car, and did not say anything for a long time. Then the lab, with its collection times. Then the 2 waits the day they sent him home, and the day the ambulance brought him back. He was lighter the second time. A baby is not supposed to be lighter the second time. Then the fund. I went to the credit union on the Thursday and sat down across from Victor, the branch manager. And I did not accuse anybody of anything. I asked one question, which is the only question I had any business asking. I asked whose name was on the signature card. He turned his monitor about 15 degrees, which I have decided is the single kindest thing a man in a tie has ever done for me, and I read it upside down. $117,460, raised by a town of 9,000 people, sitting in an account with one signature on the card, and it was not the mother's. And then Victor did something he did not have to do, which was to keep looking at his own monitor for a second longer than the question required. He said the account we opened in October was closed on the Monday. On the Monday after the ambulance, the whole of it had been wired out to a branch in another county, into an account with the same one name on it. Not a word to anybody. My grandson had a line in his scalp on the 3rd floor while it went. The wire cost $40. That charge is printed on a real statement, and it is the only money anybody in this business ever paid back. And last, the blue composition book, which my daughter handed over at the kitchen table with both hands the way you hand somebody a dish that is still hot. Dates down the left, numbers down the right. 6, 6, 6, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and a question mark. $1 and change at the drugstore. It was the only document in the entire stack that had been made by a person who was actually in the room. My sister was 22 the first time somebody did this to her. She had her daughter at 22, no husband, no plan, a night job at the plant on the east side of town. And our mother stepped in, the way our mother steps in, which is completely and immediately and with total competence. She took the baby 3 nights a week and then 5. She answered the door. She answered the phone. When the health visitor came, she poured the coffee and did the talking, and my sister sat on the arm of her own couch and listened to her own mother explain her. I was 15. I remember thinking my sister was lucky. And I can tell you the exact words, because I was on the stairs, our mother said. She is 22. She has nothing to give that baby. She is 20. She has nothing to give him. It is the same sentence. It has been in our family longer than I have. That baby called our mother Mum until she was about 4. Not on purpose, just because that is what was in the room. My sister spent 12 years earning that back, one holiday at a time. And the reason she is so good in an office is that she learned in her 20s exactly how it feels to be the person a professional stops looking at. So she knows. She knew precisely where to stand to make a nurse look at her instead of at my daughter, because she has stood on the other mark, and it took her years to walk off it. Somebody handed my sister a knife at 22, and she carried it for 12 years, and then she turned around and handed it to a 20-year-old girl handle first, like a favor, like a hot dish. Understanding where a thing came from tells you nothing about where to put it down. It did not put an ounce back into that baby. It did not make one wet diaper. A baby answers in grams, and grams do not care who is speaking. He does not know his great aunt has a voice for offices. If somebody standing next to you has ever explained you to a professional, subscribe. I have not told you yet what happened when I carried all of this to a woman whose job made her look at it. The first thing she did was put a cup of water down in front of me. Her name is Jocasta Whitcomb, and she is the safeguarding social worker for that hospital. When a baby comes back through the emergency doors dry, somebody has to ask why, and it cannot be the people who sent him home. So there is one woman in that building whose job is the baby and not the family. And everybody there is slightly afraid of her, including me, and that is the correct amount to be. Her office is off the family room on the 2nd floor. It smells like burnt coffee and the pink soap out of the wall. She sets a paper cup of water down in front of you before she says anything, every time. I have never once seen her skip it, and I have never asked her why, because some things you should not take apart. I put the scale case on her desk, and I opened it. I told her what my sister said. I said it the way my sister says it, flat, unhurried, the pharmacy hour's voice. She is 20. She has nothing to give him. The social worker wrote that down. It is the only thing she wrote down in the first 11 minutes. She let me talk without writing anything. Then she said, "Stop a second," she said. "Say the part about the numbers again, and say it like I have never been in a milk room." So I did. I said, "Every sticker on every bottle carries the number that was on the mother's wrist at the minute that milk came out of her." I said, "The band changes every admission. New admission, new band, new number. The old one is finished. That printer will never print it again." And she sat back, and she said it in her own words, which were better than mine. The way a person who does this for a living will always be better than you at the sentence you have been rehearsing. She said, "So the milk cannot lie about when it was made, because the mother's wrist made the number, and the machine made the sticker, and neither one of them was in the conversation." Yes. She turned the strip over in her hands. She asked what the number at the tail of it was. I told her. She put the strip down on her desk and looked at it the way you look at a thing that has just changed size. Then she said, "Don't tell me the rest of it." I must have looked at her. She said, "If I hear it here, I will hear it twice. And the second time is the one that counts. Say it in the room, with the mother in it. There is no version where those stickers were printed at some other time by some other person. And nobody sets out to build a case out of freezer tape." Then the social worker told me the thing I had come there hoping to hear and did not enjoy hearing. She said, "You understand this is not up to me, and it is not up to you." She said, "Once that sodium result lands in the chart, the review opens itself. I don't get to weigh whether you're a nice family. I want to sit on that for a second, because it is the load-bearing wall of my whole life since. I did not make anything happen. I did not get anybody in trouble. A number went into a chart on a Saturday morning in an emergency department, and a machine in a building sent that number somewhere, and a review opened by itself, the way a smoke alarm goes off in an empty house. All I did was carry a gray case up one flight of stairs and put it on a desk. There was a thing I did not do, and it was sitting right there. And I had it half written in my head at 2 a.m. The fund had 900 donors. There is always a list the fire auxiliary keeps one, so the thank you cards go out. And I could have had it in my hand inside a day by asking one person who likes me. 900 neighbors. the diner, the hardware store with the crooked picture taped to the jar. And I had photographs of 41 bottles, a lab result, and 2 feeding plans, one signed and one not. I could have had that in 900 kitchens by Sunday. My sister has to buy groceries in this town. I sat at my table at 1 in the morning with the list on one side and the strip of stickers on the other, and I got as far as writing the first line of it. Then I put my pen down, because of this. Send it to 900 donors, and I am not protecting him anymore. I am collecting an audience. And a second reason, harder than the first. That baby is going to be a boy in a small town. In about 6 years, he goes to school in a building with 400 kids in it, and some of their mothers put a 5 in that jar. I am not making him the child that happened to, not to win an argument with a woman I have known her whole life. The list went back in the drawer of the sideboard. It is still in there. I could not tell you today whether I would have the nerve to burn it, and I want you to notice that I did not. 2 days after that, my mother came to my kitchen and asked me to stop. She had made the drive. She had her keys still in her hand, which, with my mother, is a sentence in itself. She said my sister was not well. She said she had not slept. She said the family did not need this on top of everything. She said my daughter was 20 and had nothing left to give anybody, and could I not see that? She did not know whose sentence she was using. That is the part I keep. She had carried it into her own daughter's living room when she was 50, and she had no idea it was still in her mouth at 66. And then she said it. Let your sister carry this one, Elodie. You're too far inside it to see straight. 66 years old. The woman who parked in that lot and walked my pregnant daughter through those doors every single time so the girl would not have to do it alone. You are too close to this to help. That is the second sentence. I had heard it from my sister in a kitchen with a candle in it. Now I was hearing it in my own, in my mother's voice, about a review I did not open and could not close. That is how it works, by the way. That is the machinery. Nobody has to agree to anything. The sentence just gets handed along like a dish at a table until it has been in enough hands that it sounds like the truth. I did not argue with her. I went and got the strip off the corkboard, and I brought it back, and I laid it down the middle of my kitchen table, end to end, the whole length of it. Not one of them has a word on it. My mother read it the way you read something in a language you do not have, left to right, and then again. Then she asked me one question, and it is the only question in this entire story that anybody in my family asked me before deciding. And I love her for it, and it came about 5 weeks late. She said, Elodie, was she making milk? I said, Mum, she never stopped. The meeting was on the Wednesday at 4 o'clock, in the family room on the second floor. Low table, 6 chairs, and a box of tissues that is always full, because somebody whose whole job is this makes sure of it. It was not a hearing. I want to be careful about that, because I know what you are picturing, and it was so much smaller than that. There were 5 of us. Jocasta Whitcomb, whose job is the baby, my daughter, my sister, my mother, me. He was upstairs and he was fine by then. He had come off the line on the 2nd day, and by the 4th he was taking it like a bricklayer. I had not slept properly since the Sunday. My sister came in a blazer. She sat down and put her canvas bag on the floor beside her chair, zip facing in. She said good afternoon to the social worker by name and got it right. Then she said, I think it will help if I give a bit of background. The social worker put a paper cup of water down in front of her. Then she said, in a minute. Then she turned her chair, not much, maybe 15 degrees. The same 15 degrees a man in a tie once turned a monitor for me so that she was facing my daughter. And she said, You're his mother. This is your chart. Nobody reads out of it in here without you saying so. My daughter was 20 years old and had been in that building on and off for a month, and it was the first time anybody had turned a chair. She said it was all right. She said, Go ahead. I put the scale case on the low table, and I unclipped both clasps with my thumbs, and I opened it, and I took nothing out, because none of it was mine to take out. That is the last time I touched any of it. The social worker took the strip first, because it is the thing in that case that a person's hand goes to. She held it up by one end, and it hung down past her knee. She said, "What am I looking at?" I said what it was. She asked how the numbers get on there. I said the mother keys them off her own band, and the machine prints it. She said, "And this end? The oldest one?" I said the 3rd of March, 2 in the morning. She said, "And this number here, at the end of the run, that ends 8 to 3? I said that is the band the hospital put on my daughter's wrist when the ambulance brought him in. And she laid the strip along the low table, end to end, in the middle of 5 people. Not one of them has a word on it. Then she picked up the 2 feeding plans, and she read them out loud. Not dramatically, the way a woman reads a thing she has read 400 times. The 15th of February, 2.5 ounces every 3 hours. Signature, my daughter's. The 24th of February, 1.5 ounces. Signature line, my sister's name in my sister's handwriting, and above it, in the box that says, relationship to patient, the word, aunt. She put them down side by side, touching. Then she said the sentence that took the air out of that room, and she said it to nobody in particular, and there was not one drop of drama in it. She said, "So on the 24th, this family told us she had nothing, and on the 24th, there were 41 bottles of hers in our freezer, downstairs, in this building. Downstairs. In this building. And not one person in that family had gone down 1 flight of stairs and opened a lid. 41 bottles. A girl of 20 walked every one of them to that counter herself, one at a time, at 2 in the morning and at 5 in the morning, for 12 days. My sister said, "That milk was old." And the social worker said, "Yes, that's the part that proves it." Because that is what old means. Old means it was there first. Old means every one of those bottles was standing in that freezer before anybody in this family opened their mouth about what my daughter could or could not do. And my sister said the rest of it herself, because she is not stupid and she could see where it was going. She said, "Old is exactly my point. She had a good week, and then she dried up." That is what I told them. And that is what happened. The social worker put 2 fingers on the strip. She said, "Then tell me about this." I told the room what it was. Every sticker on that run was printed after the ambulance. It says so on each one, in the number at the tail of it. That number went on my daughter's wrist, downstairs in the emergency department on the Saturday, and it did not exist anywhere in the world before then. She said, "So when was this milk made?" I said after, all of it, made while her son had a line in his scalp on the 3rd floor, and my sister sat in this building telling people the girl had nothing. My sister said, "That is not," and then she stopped, because there is no end to that sentence. The freezer says she was making milk before you said she was not. The strip says she was making it while you were saying she could not. Those were the only 2 things anybody in that room had to understand, and neither one of them came out of anybody's mouth. Then Jocasta Whitcomb picked up 1 more page and turned it around on the table so that it was the right way up for my daughter. She did not say anything at all. She put 1 finger on the line that says, "Mother," on the white part, and left it there. I had seen that page in a parking structure on level 3 with my hand flat on it. My daughter had never seen it. She looked at it for a while. Then she picked it up, which nobody expected, and she held it the way you hold a page you are checking for a second side. She turned it over. There was nothing on the back. Then she put it down again in exactly the place it had been. She said, "I was in the chair." That is all she said. 2 feet away. Down the hall. In the chair. With the motor going. And my mother stood up out of her chair, 66 years old, and 8 days earlier she had asked me in my own kitchen to let my sister carry it. She picked the chair up by the back with both hands, the way you do when your knees are past carrying furniture. She set it down next to my daughter's. She sat in it. She did not say a word either. It took her about 9 seconds. That is what a person looks like when they change their mind in front of other people. It is not a speech. It is a chair. My sister said, "This is being made into something it wasn't," she said. I stepped in because somebody had to. She was tearful. She was not coping, And I have been the only one in this family who— And I said the only thing I said in that room for an hour and 10 minutes. I said, "She is 20. I said, "Everything on that table came out of her." I said, "You are the family spokesperson. It says so on the form. Speak." She opened her mouth. Then she looked at the strip lying down the middle of that table. Sticker after sticker, end to end, a minute and a volume on every one, printed by a machine that had never met any of us. And she did not have anything. Not one sentence. Not a bad one, even. 15 years I have watched women be told what their own bodies were doing by people who were not in the room. I have never once, in 15 years, seen the other thing happen. And it did not feel the way I had spent 19 days assuming it would feel. It felt like standing in a house after the power comes back on, when all the little machines start up again, and you realize how quiet it had been. My sister sat there for a moment. Then she said, "I'm sorry it went the way it went. There is no one in that sentence. Nothing did anything. It went." I did not point that out. It was not my room and it was not my chart, and my daughter was sitting 3 feet away with her grandmother beside her, and she deserved better than her mother scoring a point. She never opened the canvas bag. It sat by the leg of her chair for an hour and 10 minutes with the zip across, and in my whole life, I have never seen that bag come into a room and go back out of it shut. Then my sister picked her bag up off the floor and stood up. At the door, she turned around. "This is the part people always want, and I am going to give it to you exactly as it happened," she said. "You brought a social worker into your daughter's room and let a stranger read her feeding chart out loud, and she went out. It has a mother in it, and a stranger, and a chart, and it turns the woman who carried a gray case up a flight of stairs into the one who exposed a girl. I have never come up with the answer. There is not one. It is not a question. It is a coat somebody puts on you at a door. The strangers are the ones who ask to see the paper. That is all I have got, and it is not a comeback. It is just true. Almost none of what happened next was done by me." The review closed in June with conditions. That is not a courtroom word, and there is no gavel in it. It means the unit went back through its own practice and changed 2 things. The first is that the contact sheet at St. Brannan's now has a line under the spokesperson box that the mother initials herself if she is over 18 and awake. 1 initial, 4 seconds. The second is that a feeding plan is not signed by anybody else while the mother is on the unit. If she is not there, the plan says where she is. My daughter's name went on the contact sheet on the 9th of April. Her own handwriting, in a hallway, on a clipboard, with no ceremony whatsoever. I watched her do it. I did not say anything about it, and neither did she. The credit union froze the account the same week, on its own, because that is what a credit union does when a review has a file number. $117,460, raised by a town of 9,000 people, sat still for 4 months and did not go anywhere. The card was reissued in September with 1 name on it, my daughter's, hers, and nobody else's, on her own paper. And it is frozen, not closed. I want to be accurate about that, because people always want the door bricked up. It is a frozen account with a live card behind it and a manager who knows the whole business, and my sister has never once asked for it back. The only money that ever came back off her was $40. That was the bank's charge for a transfer she should never have made. She wrote a check for it. That check is the entire financial reckoning in this story. $117,460 on one side and a $40 check on the other. That is what it looks like when nobody goes to jail and nobody is supposed to. She is not on any form anywhere anymore. Not the hospitals, not the funds, not the pharmacies. And at the church, her name came off the roof committee between one meeting and the next. No vote. A name just was not on the sheet the following month, the way a name comes off a rota. If you have lived in a town of 9,000 people, you know that is the loudest thing that can happen to a person there. I did not do that either. I have not spoken to one person in that church about any of this, and I am not going to. No apology ever came. I want to say that clearly, because I know how these stories usually go. There was no kitchen scene, no phone call at midnight, no letter. There was a card at the end of June with a bird on it that said, "Thinking of you all." It is in the drawer of the sideboard, on top of a list of 900 names. I have not answered it. I have not thrown it out. My niece telephoned me in July. She is 26 now, and she is the baby in that paragraph. She said she had heard, and then she was quiet for a while. And then she said, "Was it the same as what happened with Grandma and Mum?" I said yes. She said, "I thought that was just a story people told. Somebody hands you a knife at 22, and you carry it 12 years. And then one Tuesday you hand it on, handle first, like a favor. It does not skip a generation on its own. Somebody has to stand there and not pass it. 31 hours is the number I still cannot put down. Not the salt, not the dollars, not the blank line. 31 hours, in which I was 22 minutes away with a telephone in my pocket, and I have made my peace with about 9/10 of that, and I expect 9/10 is all I get. He is 5 months old this week, and he is enormous. He has a patch of hair that came in a different color where they shaved it, and I have decided I am never going to mention that to him. Every Tuesday morning, my daughter puts him in the car and drives 22 minutes and comes to my kitchen at 10 o'clock. We do the same thing every time. I get the gray case down off the top of the fridge and unclip both clasps with my thumbs and lift the scale out of the foam. He goes on the tray with his fists going. I do not read the number. She does. She reads it herself. Then she writes it in the blue composition book, on the same pages as the 6s and the 5s and the 4s and the 2 with the question mark. She would not start a new book, and I did not argue. Then we have toast. She tells me about her landlord. He lies on his back on a folded quilt on my kitchen floor and shouts at the ceiling fan. That is it. That is the whole of it. 10 o'clock on a Tuesday, and a scale on a table, and a girl reading her own number off a screen. It is not a victory. I would not know what to do with a victory. It is a thing that happens every week now, and it will keep happening every week. And that is worth more to me than any afternoon in any room on any second floor. The strip lives flat in the vinyl sleeve inside the lid of the scale case, still stuck end to end, and it goes into every house I walk into. I have never shown it to a single one of those women. I just know it is in the lid. A baby answers in grams, and grams do not care who is speaking. That is my story. 41 bottles in a freezer, 1 blank line on a form, and a strip of stickers as long as my arm, with not one word on it. Now here is the thing I would like you to actually do, and it will take you 10 minutes. If there is somebody in your family who has become the one who handles things for a grown woman, a daughter, a sister, an old friend in a home, go and look at one form. Any form. The hospital sheet, the pharmacy record, the care plan on the fridge. Look at whose name is in the box that says who we call. Then look at the line above it and make sure it is not empty. That is all. 1 page, 1 line. It costs nothing and it takes 4 seconds to fix, and if it is wrong, you will feel it in your stomach before you have finished reading it. Share this with the woman whose family called her too emotional and then handled it without her. She is on your list. You thought of her in the first 2 minutes of this, and you have not stopped thinking about her since. And tell me in the comments about the sentence your family uses on you, the one that sounds like concern and works like a door. Mine was that I am too close to it. I would like to know what yours is, because I have come to believe there are only about 6 of them in the whole world, and every family thinks it invented its own. Then hit subscribe, because there is a woman coming next week who found out what her family had been telling people about her from a form she had signed herself. That's all of it. Thank you for sitting with me on the porch tonight. I'll see you in the next one.